I am looking at my hands right now, and they won't stop shaking. I have been sitting in this car for 20 minutes just staring at the steering wheel because I can't go inside and look at him. How do you do that? Genuinely asking, how do you do that? Because how do you walk into a house that is filled with someone who loves you and know that you are the person who tore down everything? I still don't know how I got here. I haven't told a single soul about what happened, about what I did to the man who would give up his life for me in a heartbeat. Because if I say it out loud, then it becomes real, right? Then I am that girl. I am the girl who had everything, the kind of love people pray for, and I just threw it in the trash like it was nothing. Mark is so good. He always has been. You don't understand. Like it is actually sickening how good he is. And I am sitting here with this secret that feels like it is burning a hole through my chest. I don't even know who I am anymore. I really don't. I mean, I look back at those years with Leo and it feels like a fever dream. Leo is my ex. Some would say the love of my life. Or at least he used to be. It was 5 years of my life, but I was never actually standing on solid ground. He wasn't a good man. I can say that now, but back then, I was so head over heels that it didn't even matter. He would stay out until 4 in the morning and not answer my texts. And when he finally walked through the door, I wouldn't even be angry. I was just so relieved he was back that I would apologize to him. Can you imagine that? He would make me feel like I was crazy for even asking where he was. And I would just take it because I couldn't imagine a world where I wasn't his. And Mark saw every single bit of it. Every time Leo and I had one of those explosive, world-ending fights, I would call Mark. I would be sitting on the floor of my bathroom, shaking, telling him that this was it. I am done this time, I would say. I am never going back. I would swear on everything I owned that I was finally moving on. And Mark would listen to me. For hours. He would bring me coffee and sit on my porch while I ranted about how much Leo had hurt me. He would just nod and say he was sorry I was going through this. And then, 2 days later, I would go right back to Leo. I would stop answering Mark's texts because I was too embarrassed to admit I was back in that apartment, back in that cycle. He never said I told you so. He had every right to. He just waited for the next time I fell apart. The night Leo finally left, it wasn't just a breakup. It was like someone had reached inside my chest and just ripped everything out. He didn't even scream. He just stood there by the door with that look of pure boredom on his face, like I was a chore he was finally finished with. I was on the floor, literally gasping for air, grabbing at his shoes, knees, anything I could grab and begging him to stay. And he just looked down at me with so much disgust. "Lose my number. This is over." Over? 5 years? Over just like that. He didn't say goodbye. He just stepped over my hand, walked out, and I heard his car pull away. I stayed there for hours in the dark, just listening to the silence of my apartment, feeling like my skin was being peeled off inch by inch. I felt so small, like I was disappearing into the carpet. And I realized in that moment that I would have let him kill me if it meant he would just stay for 1 more hour. I was so pathetic. I was just a shell of a person. And the worst part was knowing that while I was dying on that floor, he was probably already thinking about where he was going to get dinner. I was destroyed, and he didn't even blink. I spent weeks just staring at the wall in my dorm, and Mark was the only person who could get me to eat. He would sit there and peel an orange for me, just putting the pieces in front of me until I took a bite. He saved my life, honestly. But even then, even when he was being the perfect human being, I was looking at his hands and wishing they belonged to the man who had just destroyed me. That is the sickness of it. I had this man, this incredible soul, doing everything right. He was gentle, and he was patient, and he never rushed me into anything. But my brain was still wired for the chaos. I was used to the screaming and the making up and the constant fear of being left behind. Mark's love was so quiet that it felt like silence. And in that silence, I could hear every single thing I missed about Leo. It made me feel like I was broken, like I was some kind of machine that only worked when it was being hit. I felt so much shame every time Mark looked at me with those kind eyes. He thought he was healing me, but I was just a scab that I kept picking at when he wasn't looking. I wanted to be the girl he deserved. I really did. But I was still that girl on the bathroom floor, waiting for a phone call from a man who didn't care if I lived or died. Fast forward a couple of months. I was nothing. I was a ghost. I was just wandering around my college campus like I was waiting for my life to end. Mark stepped up. He didn't even ask to be my boyfriend at first. He just showed up. I remember one night. It was raining so hard and I was having a panic attack in my dorm, and I called him. I didn't even ask him to come. I just told him I couldn't breathe. An hour later, there is a knock on my door. Mark drove all that way in a storm just to bring me a sandwich and sit on the floor with me until I fell asleep. He did that all the time. He would drive for hours just to see me for 10 minutes between classes. He met my family and he was perfect. My dad actually likes him, and you should know that my dad doesn't like anyone. Soon enough, I started to see Mark. No, like actually see him. See his efforts. Things I have been ignoring for years. It wasn't long before he asked me to be his girlfriend, and I said yes. Well, my mom kind of forced me to, but that's a whole different story. Mark was just great. The kind of guy you dream of, you know? Bringing you flowers you hadn't asked for, taking you out on random dates, calling you during your work just to check in. But that is the problem, you know. Mark was too perfect. It started to feel like a weight. Every time he brought me flowers or told me I was beautiful, I felt this spike of guilt in my stomach, because I knew. Deep down in the place I didn't want to look at, I knew I was still dreaming about Leo. I would be lying in bed with this amazing, kind, stable man, and I would be thinking about the way Leo used to laugh. It made me feel like a liar. Every I love you felt like I was stealing from Mark. He was giving me his whole heart, and I was giving him a version of me that was still half broken. I felt so trapped by Mark's goodness. I felt like I was a debt that could never be paid back. It was too much. It was just too much. And I needed to feel something else. I needed to feel anything that wasn't this suffocating guilt. It has been about 6 months now. And for the past few weeks, I really thought I was winning. I thought I was finally becoming the person Mark deserved. This was new for me. The guilt had started to die down. I started to actually look forward to his car pulling into my driveway. I started to like the way he hums when he is making breakfast in my kitchen. It felt like I was finally waking up from a long, cold dream. Mark never stopped being amazing. If anything, he got better. He knew I had been struggling with my classes, and one night he showed up at my door with a massive stack of color-coded notebooks and my favorite pens. I remember looking at him and asking, "Why do you do all this for me, Mark? I haven't even been that good to you lately." He just smiled, that soft, genuine smile that always makes me feel like I am about to cry. And he said, "I know you try. If I could, I would get you the whole world." That is the thing about him. He doesn't just love me, he studies me. He knows when I am getting a headache before I even feel it. He knows that I hate the sound of the dishwasher running when I am trying to sleep, so he waits until he is leaving to turn it on. One time, I mentioned that I missed this old park I used to go to as a kid. A place 3 towns over that is basically a ruin now. That weekend, he packed a picnic and drove me there. He had spent hours researching the directions because it wasn't on any map anymore. We sat on this old, broken stone bench, and he looked at me and said, "I want to know every version of you, even the little girl who used to play here." It was so sweet it felt like it was bruising me. I looked at him and I said, "You are too good to be real, Mark. Sometimes I think I am going to wake up, and you will just be a dream I had while I was still crying on that bathroom floor." He laughed and grabbed my hand, squeezing it just enough to let me know he was there, and he told me, "You are stuck with me." We kissed on that bench that night. It was so perfect. I was starting to like it. I really was. I was settling into the quiet. We would spend Friday nights just watching movies and eating pizza. And for a few hours, I wouldn't think about Leo at all. I wouldn't think about the screaming or the way my heart used to feel like it was being squeezed by a fist. I felt normal, but it was like I was building a house on top of a frozen lake. It looked beautiful on the outside. It felt sturdy, but underneath the floorboards, the ice was starting to thin. Because even in the middle of a perfect night, Mark would say something like, "I am so glad we found each other. I don't know what I would do if I lost you now." And my stomach would just drop. I would smile and say, "I am glad too." But inside, I was screaming, because the more he loved me, the more I felt like I was standing on a trapdoor. I kept looking at him and thinking, when does it happen? When does the mask slip? When does he realize I am not worth the 3-hour drives and the color-coded notebooks? I was taking all this kindness, all this devotion, but I was waiting for the moment he would get bored of me, just like Leo did. I was terrified that I was falling for another lie, and the higher he built me up, the further I would have to fall when he finally decided he was done. I would look at him and think, "You are going to leave me. You are going to wake up one day and see the mess I really am, and you are going to step over my hand on the floor and walk out that door." I was trying so hard to be whole for him, but I was constantly bracing for the impact. It felt like I was acting in a play, waiting for the audience to figure out I was a fraud and for the lights to go out. I think that is why I started pulling away. It wasn't that I didn't want him, it was that I couldn't handle the suspense of waiting for him to hurt me. I needed to breathe. I needed to feel like I wasn't being watched by someone who thought I was an angel, because angels are easy to disappoint. I was looking for a way to feel in control of the pain for once. I wanted to be the one who broke the silence before the silence broke me. I was looking for a reason to prove that this peace was just a lie, because I didn't believe a love this good could actually be real. It had been a little shy of a year since Mark and I became official. He was still the same man, still steady, still caring, but he was getting busy with work. He was putting in extra hours to build that future he was always talking about, the one with the house and the yard, and the life I wasn't sure I was allowed to have. And then, one night, it happened. I was just lying in bed, scrolling through my phone while Mark was in the kitchen finishing up some dishes. A notification popped up at the top of my screen. A follow request. I saw the name, and I swear my heart actually stopped beating for a second. Leo Sullivan. My stomach just turned over, like I had been punched. We had been no contact since that night he stepped over me and walked out. I had him blocked. From everywhere. I think I was too. I never found any of his socials after that night again. And yet, there he was. Just a name on a screen. I should have deleted it. I should have blocked him and put the phone down and gone into the kitchen to hug Mark. But I didn't. I couldn't. I went to his profile, and I swear I stopped breathing. He looked so good. My God. He looked exactly like the version of him that I fell in love with before everything turned into a nightmare. He was leaner. His hair was a little longer. And he had that same stupid smirk that used to make me feel like I was the only girl in the world. He was wearing this black jacket I had never seen before, standing in front of some skyline, and he looked so free. He looked like he hadn't spent a single second of the last year wondering if I was okay. I saw pictures of him at bars, laughing, and then I saw her. Some girl I didn't know, her hand on his arm, and I felt this flash of pure hot jealousy that made me want to throw my phone to the wall. I know what you're thinking. Trust me, I felt it too. I was guilty. I felt like a traitor because I was sitting in a house Mark paid for, wearing a shirt Mark bought me, and I was still losing my mind over another man. But it was Leo. I told myself it was just a follow. It doesn't mean anything, right? I accepted it, and I followed him back. I told myself I was just being mature. I was moving on, but then, a few minutes later, the message came through. Just 2 words. Hi, Anna. I stared at those words until they started to blur. My name, the way he used to say it when he was happy with me, and the way he said it when he was done. I didn't dare open it. I was shaking so hard I almost dropped the phone. I deleted the message thread. I told myself I was done. I put the phone face down and I went into the kitchen and I kissed Mark on the cheek. "What was that about, baby?" Mark asked, a little confused. I couldn't explain. I couldn't look him in the eye for any longer. It felt like he'd see right through. He'd know. I kissed him, on the lips this time. I tried to forget it. I really did. But the next night, Mark was working late again, and the silence in the apartment started to feel like it was screaming at me. I couldn't help myself. I went back. I typed his name in and I sent the text. Nothing wrong. Nothing elaborate. Just a hi, Leo. He responded in minutes. It was like he was just sitting there waiting for me to break. He started asking generic things. You know, how have you been? How is your family? Just normal stuff. But it didn't feel normal. It felt like I was playing with a loaded gun. Every time my phone buzzed, I felt this rush of adrenaline that I hadn't felt in months. Mark's love was a warm blanket, but Leo's attention was a fire. It was dangerous and it was familiar, And it was everything I thought I had grown past. I was sitting there, texting a ghost, while the man who saved my life was in the other room. And for the first time in a year, I didn't feel like I was acting in a play. I felt like I was finally back in the chaos where I belonged. We texted for a few days, just back and forth, nothing serious. Or that is what I told myself. He eventually brought up the pictures of me and Mark. He said we looked good together, and I replied that I was happy, that Mark was a great guy. Leo texted back saying he was happy for us too, and then the conversation just died. We didn't talk for 24 hours, and I felt sick. But the crazy part is, I wasn't feeling guilty about Mark in that moment. I felt guilty for Leo. I felt like I had hurt his feelings by telling him I was happy, like I was rubbing my new life in his face. The next day, I couldn't stand the silence. I was the one who reached out first. I asked him, "What about you? Are you seeing anyone?" I waited for the bubbles to appear on the screen, my heart hammering against my ribs. "No," he said. Just that one word. And I felt this strange, warm rush in my chest that I couldn't even name. It was like I was glad he was alone. I didn't understand why it mattered, but it did. Soon after that, he asked to meet up. I told him no immediately. I told him I couldn't do that. And to his credit, he was respectful. He said he understood, and he didn't push it. But a couple of days later, we were talking again, and he brought up coffee. "Just coffee, Anna," he said. "Two old friends catching up for 30 minutes. What is the harm in that?" And I let myself believe him. I told myself it was just coffee. I told myself I owed it to our 5 years to at least say hello in person. But if it was just coffee, why did I spend an hour on my makeup that night? Why did I pull that black dress out from the back of my closet, the one that makes me feel like a person people actually look at? I was standing in front of the mirror, spraying my expensive perfume, the one Mark bought me for our anniversary, and I felt like a criminal. Mark walked into the bedroom while I was putting on my earrings. He stood in the doorway just watching me for a second, and I could see the confusion all over his face. "You look incredible, Anna," he said, his voice sounding so small in the quiet room. "But all that for an extra shift at the office? So when do you wear that dress to work?" I didn't look him in the eye. I couldn't. I just focused on the clasp of my earring, my fingers shaking so hard I could barely move them. "Oh, we are having some big meeting with a new client," I lied. The words felt like lead in my mouth. "Everyone is supposed to dress up. I told you about it, remember?" Mark just stood there. I could tell he didn't really believe me, but he is too good, too trusting to call me a liar. He just nodded and walked over to me. He kissed me on the forehead, right above my perfectly done makeup, and said, "I love you. A lot." I froze. My hand was literally on the doorknob, and I felt like I had been struck by lightning. For a second, everything stopped. The lies, the perfume, the image of Leo's face, it all just vanished. All I could feel was the warmth of Mark's breath and the weight of that "I love you." It wasn't just a phrase for him. It was a promise. It was the color-coded notebooks and the 3-hour drives and the way he held me when I was screaming for someone else. In that moment, the guilt didn't just sting. It crushed me. I felt the tears prickling behind my eyes and my throat went so tight I couldn't swallow. I almost did it. I almost dropped my bag right there on the floor and threw my arms around his neck and told him everything. I wanted to tell him I was a liar, that I was weak, and that I was about to do something unforgivable. I wanted him to hold me so tight that the ghost of Leo would finally just break and leave me alone. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because as much as I loved the safety of Mark, my body was already halfway out the door. My skin was humming with the thought of seeing Leo. It was like a physical addiction, a pull in my gut that was stronger than my own conscience. I took a shaky breath, forcing the tears back down, and I didn't even look at him. I just stared at the wood of the door and whispered, "I love you too." It felt like a curse. I pulled the door open and stepped out into the night air, and I didn't look back at the window. I knew he was watching me. I knew he was standing there wondering why I smelled like a date and why I couldn't look him in the eye. But I just kept walking. I got into my car, and I started the engine, and my hands were shaking so bad I could barely put it in gear. I kept telling myself it was just coffee, but I knew I was lying. I knew that by leaving that house, I was choosing the fire. And the worst part was, as I drove away from the man who would die for me, I was only thinking about how much closer I was to the man who had already killed me once. Leo was waiting. And for a girl like me, that was the only thing that mattered. I pulled into the parking lot, and I saw him. Leo was leaning against his car, and my heart didn't just beat, it thrashed. He looked even better in person. He had filled out, his shoulders were broader, and he had clearly started working out. He looked strong, and he looked like he didn't have a single care in the world. We went inside and sat down with our coffees, but I couldn't even taste mine. I was just staring at him, trying to find the monster I remembered, but all I saw was the man I had worshipped for 5 years. We chatted for a while, basic things. Work, family. I even mentioned Mark a few times. He made a few jokes here and there. Then, he leaned across the table. He went silent for a long while. "Leo, you okay?" I asked. His voice went low. "I was so dumb, Anna," he said, looking right into my eyes. "I was a kid. I didn't know what I had until I walked out that door and realized I had lost the only person who ever actually saw me." I froze. My breath hitched in my throat, and the world around us just blurred into nothing. Hearing those words from him was like a drug. It was the apology I had waited a lifetime for, the one I had begged for on that bathroom floor. "Leo," I whispered, "what are you saying?" And before I could think, before I could remember Mark or the house or the life I was building, Leo reached out and touched my hand. "Not saying anything, Anna. At least nothing that would make a difference anymore. I just felt like telling you how sorry I am." The contact felt like an electric shock. I could feel this wave inside me, of what I still don't know. It felt overwhelming. I couldn't hold back. Not anymore. We left the cafe. I led him, holding his hand tight. We didn't even say a word. It was like we were being pulled by a magnet. We got to my car, and in the shadow of the back seat, everything just went up in flames. It was rushed, and it was desperate, and it was fueled by years of resentment and longing and pain. It wasn't like the gentle, careful way Mark touched me. It was a collision. It was the chaos I had been starving for, and for those few minutes, I didn't care about anything else. But the second it was over, the silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. I sat there, staring at the back of the front seat, and it finally hit me. I felt the weight of every single lie I had told tonight. I saw Mark's face when he kissed my forehead. I saw the stack of notebooks he bought me. I realized that in a single, selfish moment, I had burned down the only good thing I ever had. A sob ripped out of my chest, a sound so raw, it didn't even feel like it came from me. "Get out," I whispered. Leo reached over to touch my shoulder. "Anna, hey, it is okay. Get out," I screamed, the tears finally crashing down my face, ruining the makeup I had spent so much time on. "Get out of my car, Leo. Please, just go." He looked at me with this mix of pity and regret, said he was sorry, and he stepped out into the night. I watched him walk away through the blurred glass of my window, and I was trembling so hard I had to grip the seat to keep from falling over. I was alone in the dark, smelling like his skin and my guilt, and I realized I couldn't go home. I couldn't go back to the house where love lived, because I was no longer the girl who deserved to be there. I had finally become the person I was always afraid I was. I drove back to our street, but I couldn't pull into the driveway. I couldn't tell you anything about the drive back, because I don't remember any part of it. I don't know how I did it, but somehow I was back in our block. I couldn't let my tires touch the gravel of the life we built together. I parked 3 houses down, tucked under the shadow of a dying oak tree, and I just sat there. I turned the engine off, and the silence that rushed in was deafening. It felt like the air in the car was thickening, turning into something heavy that I couldn't breathe. So as I had told you before, I am looking at my hands right now and they won't stop shaking. It has been a little over 20 minutes now. I still don't know how I got here. It feels like an hour ago I was a person who deserved to be loved, and now I am just a crime scene. I look at the clock on the dashboard. It is almost 1 a.m. The street is dead quiet, except for the sound of my own ragged breathing. I can see our house from here. The porch light is a tiny, warm glow in the distance, and it feels like a slap in the face. Mark is in there. He is probably half asleep on the couch, or maybe he stayed up to make sure I got in okay. He is waiting for the girl who went to a work meeting. He is waiting for the girl who told him, "I love you too," before she closed the door. That girl is gone. She died in the back of a car 2 miles away, and I am the thing that crawled out of the wreckage. I look in the rearview mirror and I don't even recognize my own eyes. I look like a stranger. I look like the kind of person I used to pity. I am thinking about the way he will smile when I walk through the door, relief washing over his face because I am safe. He will ask me how it went, and I will have to open my mouth and let more lies fall out. I will have to let him touch me. I will have to lie in that bed, under the sheets he washed, and pretend that I am still his. I was so sure I was going to marry him. I had the whole thing mapped out in my head, the dress, the house, the names of kids we hadn't even conceived yet. It was all right there, so close I could touch it. And now I am sitting here wondering if I should just walk in and scream the truth at him. Maybe he would forgive me. It is Mark, after all. He has forgiven every other version of me, the sad version, the broken version, the version that couldn't get off the floor. Maybe he would see this as just a rough patch, a moment of weakness from a girl who was still trying to find her way. But I know that probably won't happen. I know what's more realistic. Mark leaves. My worst nightmare is standing right there at the end of that driveway, the image of Mark stepping over me just like Leo did. If I tell him, I might lose the only person who ever made me feel like I mattered. And I can't have that. I love him so much. I love Mark. I can't let him find out. I pray he never finds out.